Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Aging Network. I'm Kathy Tutt, and today we're going to be talking about staying active in the winter months, so stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about staying active in the winter months. I'm Kathy Tutt, and I'm the Family Consumer Sciences Educator for Ohio State University Extension in Clark County. And today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Tara O'Brien, who is an assistant professor at the Ohio State University College of Nursing. She's a nurse educator and conducts research with kidney transplant recipients for promoting strategies to improve physical activity and nutrition after a kidney transplant.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be here to talk about physical activity. So I've been a registered nurse for 27 years, and I've been conducting research now with kidney transplant recipients for the last 7 years. And so I'd like to talk today about some of the strategies that we have used that's helped people to stay more physically active.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. So can we start out first, just here at the very beginning, and can you tell me why physical activity is so important?
So research indicates that physical activity is important because the more active a person is, that their chances of getting a chronic disease decreases. Physical activity also improves mental health, and it delays the onset of dementia. Physical activity also improves quality of life and well-being.
So how much activity do we need? And does it differ depending on your age, or is there pretty much a set standard for us?
Great question. So the prescription, if I could write you a prescription for physical activity across all life, or all ages, I should say, the prescription is 30 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week for physical activity. Kathy, something else I would like to talk about is, I know that I had mentioned that the prescription for physical activity is 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. But some people are probably thinking about how many steps that they can get in each day. And that with these activity trackers, when you purchase them, they suggest that having a goal of 10,000 steps a day.
Right, and I can imagine that that might be unrealistic for some older adults, right? That could be a daunting task that could even make them less likely to even try to reach those goals. If those goals aren't attainable, then I'm not even going to attempt. So is there any research that tells us more about older adults and like tracking those steps exactly?
Yes, so there's a lot of research that's going on right now about how many steps a day a person should have. But really the evidence is still not there that indicates 10,000 steps is the gold standard for older adults getting activity or getting their steps in. So again, it's really about that whole fact of thinking about sitting less and moving more. And if you're using an activity tracker, use it in a way that you're going to set a realistic goal for yourself so that you know how many steps on average you normally get, and perhaps try to increase your goal by perhaps 2% every couple of weeks to try to keep increasing and not to get caught up in the thought of you have to achieve the 10,000 steps. If you can achieve that, that's great. What we do know is there is some literature out there that for older adults, if you get at least around 4,400 steps a day, then you decrease your chances of chronic disease. So it all goes back to that thought about sitting less, moving more. And an activity tracker is really great for helping you to identify it's time to get up and move. But don't let it discourage you if you're not achieving those 10,000 steps a day.
Great. I would think, you don't need a physical gym to go to get these steps in, right? You could easily walk around your house, do laps, or if you really want to step up your activity, go upstairs or back and downstairs if you have steps holding onto railings. Walk into your mailbox maybe a couple times a day. I remember with my mom, we would say, if you make it twice to the mailbox today, we're going to do that for 4 or 5 days, and then we're going to try to get you to the mailbox 3 times a day. And of course, she lived down a lane a little bit, so it made it, a little bit more of an actual exertion of her body. So I think it's kind of interesting to take that viewpoint and recognize that they don't have to have a physical place to go to when it comes to exercising.
Exactly. And some things that have worked for other people, if you have pets, if you have a dog, maybe you have a couple dogs, you don't walk both dogs at the same time, walk them separately. So you're getting more steps in that way. If you do work from home, thinking about maybe building yourself a standing desk. So if you have an island in your kitchen, perhaps you could just stand at that island in your kitchen and work from a laptop computer, or even moving the supplies, your office supplies in different spots of your house. So you have to walk back and forth to get those supplies. Even thinking about like putting the dishes away. Perhaps you move the dishes around so it makes you get more steps in when you're putting the dishes away. So maybe it's not in close proximity now, but a little bit further away, because every step counts. The goal is for us to move more and to sit less throughout the day. So just keep in mind that some physical activity is better than none. And today, we consider that sitting is the new smoking. So according to the American Cancer Society, women who sat more than 6 hours a day were at 37% increased risk of an early death. And men who sat more than 6 hours a day were at a 16% increased risk of early death.
Wow, okay. So that really makes us, all of us who are sitting in front of our computers right now, think that maybe we should be getting up and moving a little bit. So I do have a question about the winter months, and with COVID, the gyms aren't open. And here in Ohio, it's a little bit too cold to be outside exercising. So what kind of tips do we have for that?
So with COVID and winter months, it does present some challenges, but it's about changing our mindset and thinking about how we can adjust. So some tips for physical activity. First, just thinking about what types of activity do we need to do each day. So the first type of activity, there's really 4 different types. The first type is endurance, and sometimes people think of this as more of the aerobic type of activity. So this is brisk walking or jogging, working in your yard, and of course it's winter months, so this might be shoveling snow, dancing, swimming, biking, climbing stairs or hills. The second type of activity is strength. So perhaps thinking about using 1 or 2 pound weights, or maybe no weights at all. So the resistant bands are helpful if you don't want to use any type of weight. And you can use common objects from your home. So you don't have to go out and purchase weights. You can simply use objects such as a bottle of water or soup cans. The other thing that we need to think about is balance. And you can simply do this by getting a chair, perhaps from your kitchen table, and you can use that chair to support you. Try standing on one foot, then the other foot. Flexibility is another type of activity that we need to think about that's important for us to do to use our muscles or to work our muscles. So just simply that same chair, you can sit on that same chair and stretch your legs out in front of you with your heels on the floor, bend your ankles to point your toes towards you, and just hold it there for about 10 to 30 seconds, and then bend your ankles to point away from you. And again, hold that position for about 10 to 30 seconds.
Great. Could we go and talk a little bit more? You mentioned endurance. the need for 3 types of activity: endurance, strength, and flexibility. So could we just talk a little bit? I know you mentioned the types of things that we could do, but what are the benefits of endurance exercising for our bodies?
So you're really building up your strength if you are using all 4 types of physical activity. So if you think about it, in the end, I talked about, start slow, low intensity. And one of the ways that you can do that is by starting out with that flexibility. So just flexing your lower legs, and then perhaps standing up and letting yourself get your balance so that you're not starting off with walking and you're dizzy, and that could increase your risk of falling. So, if you start out with the flexing and then you stand up and you make sure that you have good balance, then you could move on to endurance. So really, endurance, I would try to move that towards the last part of your physical activity where you're walking and getting your steps in. I wouldn't start straight out with endurance.
So I want to go back to something that you just said, and that was standing up and getting dizzy. And I hear this a lot from older adults, that they get lightheaded when they stand up. And so is there any way to explain that to people, like why that happens, or what we need to do if that is happening?
So sometimes medication causes it. Sometimes things like dehydration may cause dizziness. Low blood sugar may cause dizziness. There's a lot of things that may cause that. But the main thing to take in consideration is that when you're getting up from whatever position, so you may be lying down, you may be sitting and then standing, is that you do it slowly and try to count to 10. So let's say that you've been sitting and you're going to get up and go get a drink of water. Count to 10 before you start to walk to the sink. That way, your body is getting more circulation through your blood flow, and you have less chance of having that dizziness episode that might cause you to fall.
So that standing and counting to 10 does it give your blood pressure a chance to really regulate itself too, so that you can start that?
Yeah, it's a combination of your blood pressure, perhaps your heart rate. So all of those things are all sort of working together. But if it continues to be a problem, you definitely want to talk to your healthcare provider about it.
Great. Okay, because it could be a sign of something else then too, right?
Right.
Great. And I think that flexibility is really interesting. We've been doing a program called Matter of Balance for a while. And we talk a lot about flexibility, especially in your ankles, and the importance of keeping your ankles loose as your body's stabilizer for you, no matter what activity you're doing. And so I think it's really important for us to, talk about the flexibility among the other things as well. Yes. So do you have some exercises for home, like some suggestions that people could do in the home?
I do. So let's talk about those. So since COVID, there's a lot of free online home workouts that you could do, or perhaps you have a DVD at home of a home workout that you could simply do in your living room. Another thing that you can do is put on music. And if you have grandchildren, you could dance with your grandchildren, or whoever's living with you in your home. Perhaps that would be something that some type of music that you enjoy. Taking a walk outside, calorie burning type chores such as vacuuming in your house or yard work. Again, it's the winter months, so it might be shoveling snow. Some other easy tips to think about is during commercial breaks. This could be the time that you practice that stretching. When you're talking on your phone, try to get up and walk around and talk on your phone. And if you're going out to the store, or maybe you're going out to the post office, thinking about parking your car a little farther away.
So I do have a question, and I see this next slide that's coming up. I think probably the most important thing is to find something that you will stick to and you will do. So can you tell me a little bit about the importance of that, of actually reaching your physical activity each and every day?
Sure. So first, the most important thing is to consider what type of physical activity that you like to do. So some people like to jog, some people like to walk, some people like to swim. So pick what it is that you like to do. The next thing is to assess your daily routines. So think about on a daily basis, what is it that you do from the time that you get up in the morning till the time you go to bed at night? And think about what are the things, the routines that you do that cause you to be more physically active, or perhaps those that cause you to be less physically active. And think about that sitting time. How much time are you sitting? The next thing is to set a goal. To set a goal, try to think about going back to that 30 minutes a day. How will you achieve that 30 minutes a day of physical activity? So that could be done all at once, or it could be done in 10-minute segments 3 times a day. The next thing is thinking about tracking your goal. So there's a lot of free apps if you have a smartphone that you could download. So the Lose It app is a great app that will allow you to track not only your dietary intake, but your physical activity as well. MyFitnessPal is another great app that has those same types of features. A lot of people are buying activity trackers today. So those range in price from anywhere from $20 all the way up to really expensive ones of $500. And then the other thing that you can do is set alarms on your phone. So think about setting an alarm to remind you to simply get up and move around. But going back to setting that goal, there are some free resources. I have a website listed here. This resource comes from the National Institute of Health. And this is a goal setting worksheet that you can fill out and write down your goals on a piece of paper of what you want to achieve. Another free resource that the National Institute of Health offers through this website is an activity planner. And what's really great about this activity planner is you can click, you'll see these tabs. You can click if you want to do the activities by yourself, or if you would do those activities with family or friends. And then it gives you, or tailorizes some activities that you may choose that you would like to do. It also allows you to choose whether you would like to do those activities indoors or outdoors. And the site, again, offers another great resource of tracking your activity where you could record your activity on pencil and paper as well.
Well, thank you for sharing those. I think it's so important that people, can recognize that it's not something that you have to pay for. There are things besides those apps which cost money. And so if that's going to be a barrier, then there are these free worksheets out there that are available to people. So that is wonderful. So give me some more insights to some other things related or additional considerations that we really need to talk about when it comes to exercising.
Sure. So some additional things that I would suggest is thinking about clothing considerations. So think about your shoes. You want to choose shoes that have a flat, non-skid soles, a good heel support, enough room for your toes, cushioned arches that are not too high or not too thick. And then when you're choosing your clothes for your activity, you want to make sure that your clothes are comfortable and that they let you move easily. In cold weather, you can think about layering your clothing and wear clothes that allow the air to circulate and moisture to evaporate. Other considerations that I will leave you with is begin your exercise program slowly with low intensity exercises. Warm up before exercising and cool down afterwards. Drink water before, during, and after your workout. Wear appropriate fitness clothing and shoes when participating in physical activity. And most importantly, if you have a health condition, discuss your exercise and your physical activity plan with your healthcare provider. So I want to thank you for this time to present this information today. And I wish you the most success with your physical activity plan.
Thank you so much for all that information. So, you know, so many times when I work with older adults, we hear them say that they aren't going to exercise because they're afraid to fall. And so I would like for you just to share a little bit with me on your thoughts on that as far as exercising and falls. And are they at a higher risk, an older adult, for falling if they do exercise?
It's a great question. It's a legitimate fear. The best thing that they can do is really look at their surroundings and to make sure that there aren't surroundings that perhaps would cause them or put them at high risk of falling. So throw rugs would be one thing that they would definitely want to remove. And just thinking about, it doesn't have to be high intensity activity, but at least getting up and moving. So if you need to walk with a walker, that's still considered activity.
One of the classes that we do, we have them identify some of their faulty habits. And so some of those things that might lead them into falling or the things that might impede them from actually exercising. Because I think it's so important that, you know, our especially our older adults or anybody who has some chronic illness, that the less you exercise, the weaker you get. And then the weaker you get, the more likely you're going to fall. And then once you fall, then you're more afraid of exercising. And you see that spiral that takes place. And especially with individuals who are recovering from chronic illness or even recent surgeries, that need to exercise is even more important, even though it's pretty scary. And I love the fact that you said, you know, make sure you use a walker if you need that, because, you know, that's something that's there to protect them and keep them up and moving.
And I think that another consideration is just, you know, thinking back to all activity. So if you're moving, that is activity. So you may not need to jog or perhaps walk at a fast pace every day, but you do need to move. So thinking about how you will achieve that. And even if you're sitting, thinking again about flexing or working your muscles, and the balance is also important things to think about.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that we did with my mother for a while is that she wanted us to go to the grocery for her. She wanted us to do this, that, and the other. And I said, I will go to the grocery with you. Oh, and you're going to push a cart. You're not riding on a buggy. And it didn't matter how long it took us, how many breaks she needed to take. I just knew that she was getting some steps in when we did that. And so, you know, it's that balance of, you know, caring for people, but then also being a little bit stern and kind of pushy, which I might be a little bit on occasion. And so, you know, I think it's just so important to help support and help them have the right attitude towards exercising as well. What about having an exercise buddy? Can you give any suggestions for that? Maybe someone to hold them accountable or someone to kind of be with them when they're exercising to make sure that they're staying safe. Do you have any suggestions for that at all?
That's actually a really great suggestion. And again, the literature does indicate having an exercise buddy is a great resource. You do have to consider with COVID-19, you know, is it a person that lives with you? If it's not, what I would suggest, maybe it's somebody that you can call on the phone and you can talk to them over the phone and get your walk in. Or even do your walk in your house and call somebody and talk to them. That is a great way to sort of hold you accountable to get your exercise in. Or maybe it's a son or a daughter that lives far away. Maybe they can send you a text and say, hey, did you get your activity in today?
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mentioned I teach that Matter of Balance class, and they all decided that they were going to, the group, this was before COVID, but they were going to hold each other accountable, especially for the flexibility exercises. So the wrist and the ankles and the knees and all of that. And there was one gatekeeper who decided that whenever Jeopardy was on TV, at every commercial break would be the time that they would do ankle circles or whatever it would be. And she would call them all to remind them, like, now is your time. Don't forget, don't go to sleep while Alex Trebek is on. You need to do your exercises. And it was just really, really cute that they kind of built this little community with each other just through this simple class that they attended. So I love the idea of exercise buddies because I, for one, need someone to hold me accountable. Sometimes I'm not the best at holding myself accountable. So I do want to, just in closing, I want to talk a little bit about next month that we're going to be doing another episode talking about our caregiver network. We're going to be talking some more about respite care. And the workshop for caregivers is going to be coming up February the 17th is the date that it's set for right now. So please tune in next month. We're going to talk a little bit more about that workshop, how you can become involved in it, and the ways that you can get connected. So thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it.